As you may know, PGI has been converting the structure bonuses of some mechs to armor. Why is it a big deal? Because armor is much more valuable than structure because of the added critical damage. In the previous patch, they began with some very underplayed mechs such as the Commando, Vindicator, and the Victor. What these mechs have in common is that they are mechs that lend themselves well to brawling and skirmishing. Now, these are also mechs with big flaws. The Commando struggles with SRM tonnage and ammo, the Vindicator has terrible hardpoints, and the Victor, having lost its wings, is left to be forgotten as an oversized brawler. It's no wonder that the structure to armor conversion on these mechs didn't really have much impact. However, in the latest patch, PGR has brought more mechs to the armor club, namely the Cataract, the Orion, the Atlas, and the Highlander. You can clearly see the pattern here. These are again very brawly and coincidentally very unpopular mechs. I spent a good amount of time in each of these mechs over the weekend, trying to get a feeling what effect the extra armor had on their gameplay. So let's go over each of them now, shall we? Let's start out with the Cataract. Now, the Cataract is a mess. It's one of the first heavies in this game, and over the years it got power crit pretty hard. Especially the Warhammer covers every niche the Cataract can do, except jumping. It has very low mounted hardpoints that force you to expose yourself, and it has a huge profile that is very easy to hit. A terrible combination. However, the Cataract has some nice quirks that augments its firepower quite a bit, most of which are in the 15 to 20% range. I would say the Cataract seems to benefit the most from extra armor alongside the Orion. All of the variants get 22 center torso and 15 side torso armor. The Cataract is also much more nimbler with the same standards than the Orion due to the tonnage difference, so standard builds already felt really good on it. Now, with the extra armor, these builds are pretty effective, and if you shield well, they feel even more better. I found that the AC20 builds synergize really well with its quirks, standard engine viability, and extra armor. Especially the 1x and 0xp with mediums and AC20, 2x with AC20 and SRM6s have great mobility and damage potential. Ilya benefits as well, but it's really hurt by the Ultra AC5 nerfs. 4x is still a train wreck that still needs serious quirk attention to make it viable. However, I would say the Cataract is still not an attractive chassis for your average mech warrior. Since most of your hardpoints are at the ground level, you'll have to be on top of your positioning and patience, but more often than not, you'll get out-traded by better mechs with better hardpoints and geometry. My weird addiction, the Orion, has always been a curious beast. It's an extremely brawly chassis with very similar hardpoints to the Atlas and the Cyclops, but it was hampered by its sluggishness with standard angles and general side torso squishiness, which made XLs very extremely dangerous on it. It has gotten some nice quirks as well, especially the mobility quirks such as acceleration, deceleration, and torso turn rate helped it a little, but it never amounted nothing more than a punching bag for your opponents due to its dependence on standard engines and the resulting loss of firepower and low mounted hardpoints. Outside of a brawl on favorable grounds, it could not compete with the Marauder and the power creep monster that is the Nightgyre. With the added 23 CT and 16 side torso armor, obviously the first thing I tried was to check XL builds, and they feel kind of okay now. Especially the Protector feels much better as a long-range platform with a combination of GAUS, PPCs, and ER light lasers. The side torsos hold up fairly well at range, better XL viability helps the other variants as well, and transforms some of them from slow standard brawlers to fast XL skirmishers. I like the VA the most. Loaded with quad SRM6s and an AC10, it can keep up with the mediums and fast heavies while still packing a 58 alpha. However, aside from the Protector, the Orion is still very underwhelming compared to the alternatives such as the Warhammer and the Marauder. And no, we don't talk about the Black Knight, it doesn't exist. The Orion needs much more help than it is if it's ever to become viable enough to become a main driver for many people. I would start with better weapon quirks and perhaps extra internals on top of armor. Then we come to the Atlas, which is the quintessential brawler in this game. Again, this mech is a very hard one to do well in, because it only excels in brawling unlike another power creep monster, the Kodiak, which excels in, well, pretty much everything. The Spirit Bearer especially mostly obsoleted the Atlas, but it's behind a huge paywall. Anyway, this doesn't mean the Atlas isn't capable, it's just capable in certain situations where you can force a close range fight without getting picked apart while getting there if you're lucky. It really is more stressful and less rewarding than just loading up Ultra ACs on a Kodiak, and that's exactly what people do instead. Oddly, PGI chose to only do the armor conversion on the most popular three variants, the D, RS, and the K. These are the variants with the least amount of missile hardpoints that really hurt the Atlas's brawling potential, and kind of try to turn it into a mid-range mech with more energy hardpoints. Obviously, anything that takes away from its brawling potential is bad, and naturally, people steer away from these expensive mechs, aside from the odd misguided RS or K sniper you see in the quick play. Does the extra armor help though? The quirks give you 31 more central torso armor and 28 more side torso armor, which brings your potential front armor to 155 CT and 112 ST, which is absolutely ridiculous on paper, but only okay in practice. The Atlas D is probably it is the tankiest mech in the game right now with its minus 25% crit chance to internals on top of these armor quirks. It's also the best variant of the three up armored Atlases right now in terms of firepower, but it's dual ballistic mounts that sort of make up for the loss of missile hardpoints, but at the cost of more face time. I also like its CT lasers, which guarantee at least some way of doing damage instead of becoming a sad panda when your side torso inevitably gets stripped. The D indeed feels great with dual LBXs and dual SRM6s, and it has quickly become one of my favorite brawlers after this patch. It's not hard to break 1k damage in it if the matchmaker doesn't screw you with an open map. The RS still feels a bit pointless, but can still pull off decent damage if you stay at more range, and the K is, well, I don't have a K. Who buys an Atlas K anyway? It has absolutely no niche at all. Despite the increased armor, the Atlas is still the biggest mech in this game, and that it gets focused as soon as it shows up. The increased armor makes its presence felt in, 1 versus 1s, but you will rarely fight 1 versus 1s in an Atlas. I think PGI should extend the extra armor to the other variants as well. They really need every bit of help they can get. Lastly, the Highlander, or also known as the Lowlander. Again, the Highlander is a train wreck on the proportions of the Vindicator. It had a very similar fate compared to the Victor, as being the pinnacle pop-tarted back in the day that pretty much one-shot anything smaller than an assault. However, when pop-tarting was nerfed, it was revealed to be what it is, a mediocre brawler that needed a lot of help. Its low engine cap of 325 also limits its mobility and heat efficiency. It actually got some really nice quirks initially, such as extra speed and heat reduction quirks that almost made some of them enjoyable, but they got removed afterwards for some reason. Well, this mech is really a case of no fun as a law of the MechWarrior 9. Unlike the Atlas, all of the Highlanders get extra armor, which is nice. What's not nice is 3 of them get less, while two of them gets more, namely the Heavy Metal and the 732B. The latter gets 29 extra CT and 18 SD armor, while the rest gets only 22 CT and 15 SD. Now, this is an absolutely ginormous mech, just like the Atlas, but without its amazing hitboxes. So in overall, I found the extra armor on the Highlander is barely noticeable. However, just like the Orion, I also found out that the extra armor helps its excel viability a tiny bit, so you can afford to max out the engine while ditching end of or more heatsinks. Well, it never felt good enough. I really think it needs more armor, but also quirks that increase its heat efficiency. They really need to fix 2 of its biggest problems to make them viable, in my opinion. The first is fixing its jump jets and making them worth the tonnage. Just give them a jump jet quirk that gives more boost. Second, its horrible heat efficiency. Stuck with a small engine, weaponry that occupy a lot of crit slots, and jump jets that, well, give off a lot of heat. the Highlander is very heat inefficient. Most of the time you can barely load up 13 heat sinks. Give them a rate of heat loss quirk, just like the Locust, and I think it will feel pretty good afterwards. So there we go. I hope this video satisfied your curiosity about the changes, and let me know in the comments if you want more opinion videos like this. Rack signing off.